I read the most books that I've ever read in a year in 2025. I read 75 books this year. Last year, the year before, I read 50 books, both those years. And then the year before that, I think I only read 25. And that was the first time I made a video on this channel, was for the 25 books that I read in 2023. I am just going to be giving my rating and a brief synopsis if I feel like it. Starting off the year, my first book that I read, Buy Yourself the Damn Flowers by Tam Carr, because I have been watching Tam Carr's videos for 3 years now. It's more so about like knowing your worth in like relationships and like breakups, like getting over people, that sort of thing. I was expecting it more to be like her YouTube videos, but like condensed like into book form. I rated it 3 stars, I believe, just because it wasn't what I was personally looking for, and I'm also not a self-help reader necessarily, but I was like, you know what, I'll read it, and I still enjoyed it. It was just not like my favorite thing ever. I love the book The Midnight Library. I wanted to keep reading like more of his books, and so I picked up Reasons to Stay Alive by Matt Haig. I have never read a book that is so like open about depression. I rated it a 3.5. Next, I read Funny You Should Ask. I've been wanting to read this book for a really long time, mainly because the cover is really cute. It was okay. It was fine. I don't know. I read it in like one sitting. It's pretty short, so I read it in one sitting. But it's just like this girl who interviews this famous guy, and then like 10 years later, like, I don't know if it was actually 10 years later, but it felt like it was a long time. They've had like a falling out. They were like kind of a thing, and then we're trying to like figure out why. So it's going like past to like future. It kind of felt like an Emily Henry book, like the way that it was written, but I don't think the writing was as good as Emily Henry writing was. So it just felt kind of like flat to me. I did still rate it 3 stars, but it just wasn't like great. Next up, I read Funny Story by Emily Henry, and I honestly have gotten to a point with Emily Henry where I just read anything that comes out that's by her. This book particularly, I enjoyed. I fucking hate small towns. Okay, how do I explain this premise without like giving myself like a seizure? The main character's boyfriend cheats on her with the main boy's girlfriend, right? So it's like their boyfriend girlfriends cheat on each other with each other, and then the two that got cheated on like slowly talk to each other, like get to know each other. They've been living together. I don't really have much to say about it. It was fine. Like, I did still enjoy it to the point where I was like, let's read another one. So I did reread Book Lovers. I read this before, and in the past I wasn't a huge fan of it. And then I heard like everybody talking about Funny Story, and they were like, oh, Funny Story was fine, but like I prefer Book Lovers. And then I was like, really? Because I didn't really think either of them were that good. Like in my mind, like Happy Place is the best one. And so I was like, you know what, let me reread it. I think the character's name in this is Nora. Oh yeah, I'm good. Nora is always being like traded over for these like small town girls, but she's like a big city girl. I think the first time I read this, I wasn't necessarily like exhausted yet with how many small town romances there are, because like the first time I read it, I was just kind of like, okay, whatever, she's a big city girl. But then when I read it this time around, it was like so much more refreshing because I was so tired of small town books. I just want to put out there, I think this is a very unpopular opinion. I hate small town books. I hate them. I hate them so much. I'm going to get into it more later, but I've tried so many times. I've read all of the books. I hate small town. It's my least favorite trope. I also hate single dad. I'll get into it when I start getting like to those books, but I'll talk about it later. I did find this better the second time around reading it, and I did rate it a 4 stars. This was like probably my most anticipated read of 2025, which was Nothing Like the Movies, because I've talked about it time and time again. Better Than the Movies is like my favorite romance book ever. Like, it's so good, as in like YA romance. Like, there are other ones that compete with it, but I will say, like, I have never had more fun reading a book than when I was reading Better Than the Movies. And I'm not gonna lie, it started off so slow, like so slow. I wasn't a huge fan of it initially, but later on I was just kind of like, you know, I get it. I used to think that I didn't like second chance romance, but then I read Happy Place by Emily Henry, and it's one of my favorite books, and then I was like, maybe I do like second chance romance. I really enjoyed the theme of grief, because that was actually a big theme in Better Than the Movies, was the theme of grief. Her mother had passed away, and so that sort of got reiterated. This video is gonna be so long. Next, I read The Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. Okay. This was very different to what I had read in the past. I think Ali Hazelwood has definitely been experimenting more with her writing because there was like those 3 science books that were the same. Like you could literally switch up the names and I wouldn't know.
That's actually a lie because those 3 books are like my shit. I know the difference.
But then she started experimenting with Bride. Check and Mate was pretty different. And my favorite thing about this book was actually that the characters had like hopes and dreams outside of the relationship. It follows a girl who is a diver at Stanford, which is so like odd of like a choice, but I enjoyed it so much because you can tell that like Ali Hazelwood like did her research. It's that one book, The Bad Boy Quarterback and Me. I read that when it first came out. I have not watched the movie, by the way.
Nice catch, Stu.
Not my name, quarterback.
I don't even know football, and I knew she didn't know football. But when I was reading this, I was like, okay, I think she actually did her research because she's writing like she knows what she's talking about. In a very odd switch up, I read Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. This book was so good. As dystopian books go, this one was very severe. Kind of reminded me of The Giver. I'm gonna consider it a classic. So that was my first like classic read of this year.
I'm like pissing myself off as I'm editing this. Why am I not rating any of them? Please ignore the wall decor. This is not my home. I don't know. It's Star Wars and Coors Light. Like, I don't know. Clearly I'm at a boy's house.
Next, I read a book that everyone has been like on my ass to read for like years, which is Binding 13. This book is so thick. Look, and it's not even that like it's like a big book. Like it's not, because I don't think it looks like it's a big book because it's not super thick, but like look how floppy this book is. This was such a Wattpad book. I just realized I didn't rate the last few books. I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Nothing Like the Movies was a 4. Deep End was a 4. Brave New World was a 4. We're back. I don't even know how to describe how I felt about this book because I really enjoyed it, but it was so cringe. I would put this on the same level of cringe as 1,000 Boy Kisses. And listen, I'm not one for cringe. I'm not the type of person to be like, oh, that's so cringy. Oh, that's so cringe. Because I think somebody calling like everything cringe is pathetic. But I will say that this book, there was so many moments where I had to take a deep breath. Because the way that it's about a very serious topic. It's about DA, it's about like home violence, like everything like that, right? The way that it's written and the way that like the boy finds out that this is happening to her, like YN novel, like, oh, protect her. Like, I don't know. Generally, she's pretty smart, right? But like she's so like unsure of herself, and like I'm sure that that's like a normal thing that happens to somebody who's like been through a lot. But when I was reading it, I was thinking to myself, her character is so inconsistent. It was also very similar to Check and Mate, the Ali Hazelwood book, in the way that this book is not YA. It is not YA. Everyone keeps calling it YA. It's not YA. He like sees her boobs and is like, I don't, to me that's not YA. I don't care. I'm not a prude. I'm just saying, if you are somebody who is like younger, I can't, I have zero, I read smut when I was 13. If you want to read it, read it. I don't care. I did still rate this 4 stars, but it was quite a reluctant 4 stars just because it was just weird, guys. I didn't like their dynamic. I thought he seemed like really old for her. I don't know why I'm like so unhinged right now. I read this one summer. I told my teacher that I loved Smile and Sisters and drama. I loved reading those books when I was like a wee little child. And I told her that and she was like, have you ever read This One Summer? It's this book about these like 2 girls. I remember at the time I talked to my teacher about it, and my teacher was dead set that like one of the girls was a lesbian and that was what the story was about. 4 stars as well. This was a 4-star year, honestly. Like I read very few books that I hated this year, which is unusual for me. Next I read Keeping 13. This book I hit a bit of a slump with because I decided when I was flying to New York,
Oh my god, she's so much cooler than me. It's crazy.
that I wanted to listen to some of the audiobook. I had no idea they were supposed to be Irish, and it kind of took me out, I'm not gonna lie. Whoever voiced Johnny, zero disrespect to anyone who is Irish. Y'all's voices, specifically that guy, is so hard to take seriously. Because also, it made so much more sense because I kept reading the book thinking to myself, what the hell is an Egypt? What's an Egypt?
Is everyone in this class a bleeding Egypt like that one?
Like, because they write like EEJIT, I think. And then I was listening to the audiobook, listening to Johnny, and he's like, an Egypt. And I realized they're saying like idiot, I think. Is that just Irish slang or is it idiot? Because it sounds real close. I did still rate that book 3.5 stars. I don't know if I'm gonna keep reading the series though, I'm not gonna lie. I will say I love Gibby though. What is his name? Is it Gypsy? What is his name? I really like one of the boys, so I want to keep reading it. Gypsy? I don't know. I really hope I'm not offending Irish people today. That isn't my intention. I just can't take y'all seriously. Next is The Notebook. There's smut in The Notebook. Did y'all know that? There's smut in it. Did y'all know? It's one scene of smut. But like, I didn't know that. I thought it was going to be very wholesome and very pure. Also, I didn't know it was about cheating. Low-key giving Regretting You. Okay. To say about The Notebook, I'm not gonna lie. It made me cry. I rated it 4 stars. I read it in one sitting. It was fire. Next, I read Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. And actually, I don't know if I logged the right book because all of her covers look the same. Oh dang, these comments are mean. Everyone hates it. I am right. Okay, so Sam and Persephone, right? They grow up together, they're childhood friends, whatever. And then they grow up and they date and then they break up and then it's like a get back together thing. I personally really enjoyed it while I was reading it, but then after reading it, I was like, wow, that book was really unremarkable. I've noticed a lot of times I will read something and I'll have such a strong, like overwhelmingly good opinion on something. And then I go like a few weeks after reading it and then I think to myself, huh, that was a pretty mid book. I did rate it 4 stars. I think now I would rate it 3.5, but it was still pretty good. Second Chance Romance, Lake House, so I like both those things, so it was pretty good. I read Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. I don't know what I was expecting from this book cover. I don't know what I was expecting, but not what happened. I don't really have much to say about it, I'm not gonna lie. It was fine. It was not as good as the deep dive. I honestly really like the deep dive because I think that Ali Hazelwood has been experimenting a little bit more with like really like raunchier books. And so I was like, this is fine. But I did like the deep dive more than I like this one. I honestly don't know which one was released in what order. I just read the deep dive first. So I read the third Gilmore Girl, which is Kelly Bishop. I love Gilmore Girls. It's one of my favorite shows ever. For anyone who wants to know, I'm Team Tristan. I will take no ifs, ands, or buts. I'm Team Tristan. Mainly I'm Team Tristan because he's hot. I have a very hard time picking between Logan and Jess, but I think that I do prefer Jess over Logan before they started dating. If it's like while Rory and Jess were dating, then I would prefer Logan, but if it's before Rory and Jess were dating and they were like friends, I would prefer Jess. Tristan all the way. Anyone who's Team Dean, don't talk to me. I really appreciated her acting throughout the whole series, and then I found out she was a dancer and I had no idea. Like, she was a chorus dancer for a lot of her career. I think because of my emotional connection to Gilmore Girls, it's a 5-star for me, but generally I think I would rate it like a 4.5. I read a book that also everybody was like down my throat telling me to read, which was Iron Flame. Listen, it was too long. It was too long. I think I read like 5 books whilst reading Iron Flame because Iron Flame actually like exhausted me. I would read like 2 chapters and then be done. I honestly can't tell you most of what happened. Honestly, I'm not a fantasy book person. I've talked about it before. I'm not a fantasy book person. I'm not a fantasy book hater, but I'm definitely not a fantasy person. I will say that like this book, it was like, I liked how the world was fleshed out a lot more, but I wanted more character connection, and I really didn't like the relationship between the 2 main characters. I love going to see the author's description of themselves. It's always so like millennial core because like I think that most popular writers right now are millennials. Rebecca Yarros is a hopeless romantic and coffee addict. What a funny girl. Oh my god, this review is so long. Wait, I want to show you this. Ageless has 17 reviews. She rated Fourth Wing a 0.5 of a star. Everything that I scroll is her, okay? What the fuck? I can't even say that much about a book I like. His name's Zayden Ryerson. Okay, now I remember this. That's such a stupid name. Anyways, her and Zayden, I just kind of wanted more like banter. I wanted more like tender moments. I was so tired of them fucking. Like, I did rate the book 3.5 stars. Next, I read The Paradise Problem by Christina Lauren. I've decided I need to give up on Christina Lauren books because I don't like any of them, but I keep reading them. Obviously, no hate to her. Like, who's winning, girl? I'm sitting in my room talking about books. You're like a best-selling author. Don't get mad at me. But her books just aren't for me. Like, I did like that it was a starving artist trope. I love a good starving artist. One of my faves as a starving artist. One of my faves. But I just didn't love it. I don't know. Liam's pretty cool. I don't know. It was fine. There was nothing like irredeemable about it, but it wasn't like amazing. So I gave it 2 stars. Call Me By Your Name was a book that I decided to read because I enjoyed the movie a lot. I'm going to talk about it a little bit later when I talk about another like gay love story that I read, but I think that this book is one of those like tragic books, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like very commonly gay stories are very like sad at the end. Like, I feel like they rarely end with a happy ending, and this one definitely doesn't. So I was on my Gilmore Girls kick, right? Like, I was reading Kelly Bishop's autobiography, so then I decided to read Lauren Graham's autobiography, who's also from Gilmore Girls. I really enjoyed how when reading it, it wasn't like she had some big grandiose plan to become like a huge movie star. She said that her dream was to be like a memorable person in her like local theater. Like, there was like people on the walls of her local theater, and she was like, that's my dream in life, my career is to have my photo on my local cinema's wall. So I gave that book 4 stars as well. I did reread one of my favorite books this year, which is Normal People by Sally Rooney. I reread this book probably once a year, I would say. I just enjoy it a lot, and I find something new every single year to like hyperfixate on. And it's such a good book in the way that it's just like very realistic to how most romantic relationships go, in the way that most of the time it doesn't work out, and that's okay. This constant flip-flop of like, we are perfect for each other, but we're not. Like, we keep missing each other because we are at different points in our lives, but as people, we are very similar. So, yeah, I love this book. I would rate it 5 stars over and over and over again. If there was only one book I could read for the rest of my life, it would be this one. I finished Normal People, and I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I've never read any other Sally Rooney book. So I read Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney, and it was fine. It was fine. I don't know. Like, I didn't love it. Oh my god, I'm stuck in this blanket. I didn't think it was the best book ever. I think my expectations were a little too high. Next, I read This Summer Will Be Different, and it was not as good as Every Summer After. Is that what it was called? I honestly couldn't tell you what this book is about. I don't remember. It really was not that. It wasn't all that. I just didn't really like it that much. It was basically the same trope as the other one that I read, if I remember correctly. And I think I rated like 2.5 stars. It just wasn't as good as the other one I read. Then I read a not very typical book for me to read, which was Crying in H Mart. I kept seeing this in my high school's school library, and I kept wanting to read it, but I just never did. A woman who, her mother is dying. Her mother's too proud to let her daughter take care of her. I cried my eyes out. It was so good. It was written so well. I would rate it 4.5 stars, almost a 5. Next, I read another book that I had been recommended to read like a million times over, which is Magnolia Parks. I can't like spoil it. I can't spoil it. But essentially, it's 2 people. They've broken up. You don't know why. They're both from very, very, very wealthy families. And so I enjoyed that. I like anything about rich people. When you're getting things through Magnolia's perspective, you're like, oh, BJ fucked up. Whatever BJ did, it's his fault. But I did rate that 4 stars as well. Why is it I rated every single book 4 stars? Next, I read Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. I don't think I've read Abby Jimenez books in the past, so this was new for me. Whenever I read any sort of plot that's like, I can't follow my dreams because my family are all world-renowned surgeons, so I have to be another world-renowned surgeon. I just can't take plots like that seriously because I'm just like, you're in an unlocked cage, get out. I love this book because it is such a normal perspective, but from a crazy person, basically. So it's like, she's crazy, but the writing's all very normal. I also really like how it's kind of a nudge to Sylvia Plath's real life, because one of the main characters like things in asking people, if you were gonna commit, how would you do it? And she's always disappointed by their answers. Like, she's always like, oh, they always tell me something stupid. Like, they would hang themselves, or they would like themselves or whatever. She's like, I'm always disappointed by what they say. And then she like goes into like detail of all of these different ways that would be more interesting. And it's crazy knowing that Sylvia Plath stuck her head in an oven. The book I rated, I think the lowest, is If We Ever Meet Again by Anna Huang. And I just hated it. I hated it. I hated it so much. Oh my. It's like a study abroad thing in Shanghai. That went nowhere. There's a Miraculous Ladybug special that's set in Shanghai, and I kept thinking to myself, I would rather be watching the Miraculous special set in Shanghai. The guy got a girl, like, the girl markers for her birthday, and she's like, wow, I've always wanted these markers. They're markers. I could get it if it was like, wow, these special oil paints, but like, markers? I feel very strongly about that. I don't think anybody else cares, but like, I felt strongly about that. Next, I read another book that my teacher recommended, the same one that recommended this one summer, was Hey Wait by Jason. Doesn't say a last name. It delved into a lot of like grief, and the characters are just little dogs that are drawn. Next, I read a book that I have seen a lot of hate on, I'm not gonna lie, and I would like to be here to say that I loved When the Coffee Gets Cold. It felt similar to me to The Midnight Library, where it's like the books are like the lives she could have lived, but like she can't like necessarily change it. She can just go there. And it's like, it's similar to that because basically the premise is that it's a coffee shop where you can travel in time, but you can only travel in time to that coffee shop, like time periods in that coffee shop, and you can't leave and you can't change anything, right? And I loved it. I've heard so many people say that they're like, what was the point? What was the point? That's the point, is that there is no point. Like, everybody kept telling me to read Frida McFadden, but I didn't want to commit to a huge book, so I read The Widow's Husband's Secret Lie. Is that what it's called? That title makes about as much sense as the plot in the book does. The entire like crux of it is the white and gold or blue and black dress. The dress that people used to fight over, and that's like when she knew that her husband was like abusive. I gave it like 3.5 stars. This next book, I finished it in November, but I had been reading it since April. I read Manacled. I actually filmed a reading vlog of me reading Manacled, of like when I was like halfway through the book and I kept reading it, but I actually was such an emotional wreck at the end, I didn't post it. It's a Harry Potter fanfiction. It is. Okay, it's a Harry Potter fanfiction. But I don't want to just call it a Harry Potter fanfiction because I feel like that diminishes what it is. But okay, when I initially started reading, I was thinking to myself, there is absolutely no way that I am going to be okay with this book. Like, there's no way. There's absolutely no way. Because it is the premise of The Handmaid's Tale in the event that Voldemort won, okay? And now there's like repopulation programs. Hermione Granger, right, goes to the Malfoys as a handmaid. Isn't that crazy? Like, that premise, I heard that premise and everybody was telling me to read it and I was like, absolutely not, absolutely not. And when I started reading it, I was like, there is no way, there's no way. Also, to everybody wondering where I got it, I literally just downloaded it off AO3. I don't know if you can still do that or not, but I just downloaded it off of AO3. And I remember reading it thinking, did I download the wrong AO3 book? Because as I was reading it, I was like, this is disgusting. That man did not do anything wrong. That man tried his best. I haven't showed you my nails yet today. They're like milky white with like white dots. I did them a few days ago and I'm really liking it. I read The Christmas Carol. A Christmas Carol. I always call it The Christmas Carol. It's A Christmas Carol. I read A Christmas Carol. 5 stars, as always. I honestly don't think I talked about it last year. I don't typically count it in my year of books. I don't really know why. It's a book. I read it every year. I think it's because it's so thin, so I don't usually count it. And it's like a book I read regardless. I don't know. But I'm counting it this year and from this year now on because I read it every year and I really like The Christmas Carol. A Christmas Carol. Damn it. It makes me very thankful during the time of the holidays. And I think it's the perfect book to read every single holiday because most modern holiday books, movies, and books suck. The Happiest Man on Earth. It's about a guy who is Jewish and he was Jewish during time of the Holocaust, and how he very much was like mourning the country that raised him. Basically, he's the unluckiest person on planet Earth. Like, he was in like 5 different concentration camps. Like, he kept getting moved around, and they kept escaping and kept moving around, and then his whole family died. It was a very hard read, but I did rate it 4 stars because it was a very good book. Next, I read The Villa by Rachel Hawkins. It was like a thriller slash mystery slash, I don't even know. I read it in like one sitting. It was a very quick read. I really enjoyed it as well. The plot twist was like stupid to me, but like if you like it, you like it. I don't know. I feel like I'm a very picky person when it comes to plot twists typically. But you know, it's whatever. I rated it 3.5 stars. It was a very vivid book, so I did enjoy that. It was very well written, as in like well written in the visual sense. Next, I read a book by Neil deGrasse Tyson because I wanted to. Because I was like, you know what? I will feel so smart if I read a book by Neil deGrasse Tyson. So, Astrophysics for People in a Hurry. And I thought it was gonna be like a funny, quippy sort of like novel. I thought it was gonna be like funny, like he was gonna like talk about astrophysics while being funny. No, it was just about astrophysics. It wasn't what I was expecting at all, but I still enjoyed it. I was like, wow, I'm like reading smart shit right now. And I rated it 3 stars. Next, because I read that one Frida McFadden book and then The Villa, I was like, I kind of want to read more books like this. I read The Housemaid. My friend actually describes these books in a very specific way, and I'm going to steal it from him. So basically, he calls them mom books because it's the type of books that moms read, because moms love books that are thrillers, moms love books that are very fast-paced, and moms love books with plot twists. So thank you for the idea. I'm stealing it from you. But anyways, I read The Housemaid, and it was fine. I think Frida McFadden books, in the moment when you read them, you're like, this is so good. And then once you're done, you're just kind of like, okay, this is a book. I don't know. I think when you first get the plot twist, it's like, whoa, crazy. But then after a while, you're kind of like, okay. But I will say, I genuinely feared for the characters in this book. I feel like normally in thrillers, I'm just kind of like, yeah, okay. But then like, this one, I was scared for everybody. Next, I read Elevation by Stephen King. I decided to read a Stephen King book because I think it's because the It Welcome to Derry series came out, and I was kind of interested in reading some of his writing, but I wasn't trying to read it. I've read part of it. I DNF'd when a really weird scene happened. Basically, it's this guy. He looks like he's like pretty stocky, pretty big, but he's slowly losing weight every day. It only shows up on the scale though. He never looks different, but like every day he's losing weight. He's like running marathons and doing all this like physical activity, but like he's technically like dying. I don't know. It was super odd. And like also seeing like how people treat him like differently when he's like able to do more things physically. And then at the end, he floats away. I know that's like spoilers, but like also, were you gonna read it? I rated that like 2.5 stars. It was fine. Like I didn't hate it. It was just kind of like, I was like, okay. It's weird. Next, I read Someone Else's Shoes by Jojo Moyes. And this book, basically, I decided to read this because she wrote Me Before You, and I love Me Before You. It's one of my favorite books. And so then I decided to read this one. And this one was so, I don't know. When I first started reading it, I was like, dude, I hate this. This is so boring. Like, I hated it when it first started, I'm not gonna lie. But then as you get to know the characters and you go back and forth between their perspectives, you definitely start to feel empathy for both people more, and like how both of their relationships are feeling. Basically, one of the women, she's like, she presents as this like rich woman, right? Her shoes get stolen from a hotel. And during this time period, her husband is deciding to divorce her, and he doesn't want to give her anything, and she needs to find the shoes and give the shoes to him because he says that that's all he wants. And then the other woman, the woman who stole the shoes, we see her perspective, and her husband, she loves her husband, but her husband in the past 6 months lost his father, and since then they haven't really talked. He quit his job, he doesn't do anything. You can see how she's struggling to maintain faith in her husband, and how the other woman is trying to get money from her husband. I rated it 4 stars, and the plot twist at the end was like pretty cool. I wanted to read more holiday books. It was December by this point. The Mistletoe Mystery by Anita Prose, or actually I think I read this late November, but Anita Prose, and it was super short. It was super good. I really liked it. I don't really have much to say about it because it was such a short book that it's hard for me to say much about it without spoiling it, and I rated it 3 stars. Next, I read The Service Berry. I've talked about a lot of these books on my channel before, so I'm like, as I'm like redoing them, like I feel like I'm just like talking in circles. It's about people's relationships through a nature lens sort of thing, like through the natural world. She explains people and abundance. I didn't feel like it necessarily taught me a lot. Like it was things that I had thought before, but it was nice to like read it in writing, I guess. I rated that 3 stars. Next, I read The Witches by Roald Dahl. I decided to read some Roald Dahl books because I loved them growing up. My favorite book growing up was The Twits. It was my favorite book ever. I read it like 4 times in grade school. So I decided to reread it as like a cozy little downtime read. It was great. Read The Gift. It was so weird. It was like a weird, like, it was kind of Christmas set, so I decided to read it because it was like during Christmas time type thing. Basically, it's this woman who wants to get a gift for her husband, but she can't afford what she wants to give him. So she chops off all of her hair and sells it. And I can't really say much else without spoiling it because it is like 100-some pages. I read another Roald Dahl book because I was kind of getting into it. I was like, oh, this is so like childhood. So then I went and I read James and the Giant Peach again, and I forgot how much I liked that book because I don't know, it was just so fun going back reading like some childhood books that I hadn't read in a long time, and you're kind of gonna see that I did that more later. Next, we're kind of getting into the books that I read for my 24-hour reading challenge. I have a video up about that if you want to go and watch it, but I read Fake Skating for the first book of my reading challenge, and I loved this book. It was so good. It's by Lynn Painter. This might be my favorite Lynn Painter book. Like, I don't know, I haven't read Better Than the Movies in a long time, and I do think it's like one of my favorite romance books, but I think that this one genuinely might be my new #1. I don't know, like it wasn't perfect, but it was really good. It's basically this girl, she moves back home to the town that she used to live in before she moved away, and her and the main guy have had some sort of falling out. They used to be best friends, they're not anymore, and we get like a fake dating type thing, and I would rate this 5 stars. Within that challenge, I also read The Cinnamon Bun Bookstore. Listen, if you watched my video of my 24-hour reading challenge, you know how I feel.
I'm so good at this. I'm like, no one reads like me.
Oh, I don't like Small Town. You know, and it's spicy? Why is it spicy? Look at this book cover. Oh, I guess they did say spice on the front. I thought that was like catchy, like we're baking. I didn't think it was like we're fucking.
I hated this book. I hated it so much with like a burning passion. I think I gave it 2 stars at the time. I'd probably give it 1 star now. I hate Small Town. I just don't like it because I just feel like there's nowhere to go. There's no good plot points. I rated this 1 star. It's like this lady, she owns a bookshop called the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore, and he's like a fisherman, and she starts finding like clues for like a fun summer, and they kiss in like the first chapter. Next, I read A Song of Achilles, and I'm not gonna lie, I didn't like this book as much as I wanted to. It was still really good. I was not expecting it to be a gay love story because it's such like a widely loved book. A gay love story would be too niche for like a big like popular book, but it's a gay love story. I didn't cry though. I think it's because I did read it from the hours of, I think I started it at 11, no, I started at like 1 a.m. and then read it until like 6 a.m. So I think that is probably why it didn't emotionally rapture me, because I did read it for the 24-hour reading challenge. I would still rate it a 4 stars. It's just for the amount of people who told me to read it, it wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be. The King of Wrath by Ana Huang. I know, I gave an Ana Huang book another chance, and this one I did like a lot more than If We Ever Meet Again. But it still wasn't like as good as the Twisted ones were. It was very like CEO, like okay, like fake marriage. I don't like fake marriages. I should have known that it was an arranged marriage book because there's literally a ring on the cover of it. Whatever, I don't know. I didn't know for some reason. But anyways, it was better than the other ones were. I would rate it 3 stars. Next, I read Fantastic Mr. Fox by Roald Dahl as well, because I actually had never read Fantastic Mr. Fox. I honestly didn't even know that Fantastic Mr. Fox was a book that Roald Dahl wrote. I genuinely do like the movie more than I liked the book. I counted this towards my reading goal because it's technically a chapter book, but I was visiting my family members and I read to my little cousins. I read them Stuart Little, and I did count it through my Goodreads goal because I can. Then I read Passion or Penalty because my friend wouldn't stop telling me to read it. And I told her, I was like, yeah, I read Fake Skating and I liked it. Because I told her in the past, like, don't recommend me hockey books. I don't want to read them. Because she made me read Icebreaker. I was like, I'm never reading a hockey book again. Don't give me that shit. And so then she got me to read, well, I got myself to read Fake Skating because I love Lynn Painter books. And I saw it there and I was like, it's a hockey book, but it's Lynn Painter, so I have to. I literally was making a vlog when I saw it at Target. I was like, I have to read it. But then she was like, read Passion or Penalty, please, please, please. And it was a really short book, so I was like, whatever, fine, I'll read it. It was fine. It was 3 stars. It's just like, I don't know. It's like best friend's little sister trope. I read the novella To the Housemaid, which is the housemaid's wedding. I like that she married someone from the previous book. I feel like nothing happened that whole book, but it was still like fine, so I'd rate it like 2.5 stars. I read The House on Mango Street because I read The House on Mango Street so many times when I was little. I just like did. I don't know when I read it or why. This book is one of the most character-driven books I've ever read. Like, there is no plot outside of the characters, and I rate it 4 stars. Next, we have Tuesdays with Morrie. It was very, very good. I cried so hard at the end of this book. Basically, it's about a teacher and one of his students from the past. And his student, after graduating, years and years and years later, he finds out that Morrie, his old teacher that he loves, is sick and he's dying. And it's like inevitable that he's dying. Like, it's gonna happen. And so he goes to meet him. And he goes every week. And Morrie dedicates his last like few months of his life to basically a class as he's slowly losing mobility and his loved ones, and how he knows that he's gonna die in a few months, and how he overcame the anger of it and the fear, and just basically how to die 101. It's so good. I feel like I'm running out of adjectives because I've been talking about books for like an hour and 40 minutes now, which I'm probably gonna cut out most of this video and it's gonna be like 40 minutes long. But this book was so good. I genuinely think it like changed the way that I view the world, and I recommend this to literally anybody. 5 stars. Next, I read a J.D. Salinger book, which was really odd for me. I was experimenting this year. I'm gonna have to read the title because the title's low-key hard to read. Okay. Raise High the Roof Beam, Carpenters and Seymour, and Introduction. Basically, it's 2 different stories combined into one, and his brother does not show up to his own wedding, right? That's a big flaw of the first one. The second one is him explaining his brother, kind of like a genius, but I was so unbelievably bored. It was written very well. I was so bored out of my mind. It's like 2.5 stars. It was fine. I only really read it because I found it in a little library in my neighborhood, and so then I was just kind of like, okay, I'll read it, because I was like, I kind of wanted to read a J.D. Salinger book anyways, so when I saw it in my library, I was like, I'll read this one, and I found out it's like the least popular one, but whatever. The Stranger Things season 5 started coming out. In the series, Holly is reading A Wrinkle in Time, and somebody asked me, oh, what's that about? What's A Wrinkle in Time about? Because they know that I'm the reader, and I was like, I don't know, I've never read it, and I hate having to say that. I hate having to tell somebody, I don't know, I've never read it. So I was like, no, now I need to read it. If I would have read it when I was younger, I probably would have liked it a lot more. It was a good story, but I just feel like I'd read it too late in life to really enjoy it that much. But I rated it 3 stars. Next, I read Brown Girl Dreaming, and this was very much a character-driven story and like a culturally driven story. I rated this book 3.5 stars. The 7-Year Slip, which a lot of people have recommended to me over the years. Somebody had told me like, oh, it's about like a magic apartment, right? Like it's about an apartment where like you travel in time. And I really wanted to read it because I was like, oh my gosh, I just read Before the Coffee Gets Cold, and that's a coffee shop where you travel in time, so let me read it. The romance was really, really good, and I loved how both characters had like personalities and dreams and like hopes of their own, and I rated this 4 stars. I read Heated Rivalry because the show started coming out and I was so curious, but I didn't really want to watch the show. I was like, but there's a book though, so let me read the book. I have never read a book with such explicit sex scenes in my life. Same like amount as Icebreaker, I feel like. Maybe more, but it was like the book actually had plot, so it was different than Icebreaker. Nothing horrible happened. I feel like a lot of times in books about gay people, somebody gets outed or someone gets like borderline hate crimed or actually hate crimed, I rated it 4.5 stars. I read a book that I had been putting off reading for a long time. I don't really know why. I read Divine Rivals like a year or two ago. I didn't love the ending of Divine Rivals. I feel like a lot of times when a character forgets another character, like they have like amnesia that's like brought on by like the government, it always takes so long for them to remember anything. But like what I appreciated is that in this book, he forgets Iris, right? He forgets Iris, he forgets everything about her, but then as soon as he meets her, he remembers. I read The Intruder by Frida McFadden. I read this, I felt so smart for this. I went on a run, right? Like a really long run. While on this long run, listened to a thriller novel, and it was one of the best decisions I've ever made because I was also like running through the woods and it was like eerie, and I was like, ooh, this is fun, I like this. I will say though, I didn't realize this when I read The Housemaid, but Frida McFadden's plot twists aren't very good, right? They're not very good, and I'm actually gonna cross-reference, like I'm gonna talk about two books at once right now. So for preface, I did rate this book 3.5 stars, okay? The next book after this that I read is The Tenant by Frida McFadden as well. Both of these plot twists have no merit. None at all. Zero. Zilch. Because, here's the thing. I am a fan of like a Gone Girl plot twist. And by a Gone Girl plot twist, I mean that there are clues leading up to the plot twist, right? Once you find out that it is actually Amy Dunn who is the mastermind, you see as you reread a book, oh, this is where she did this. This is where there's a clue that I didn't pick up on the first time that I read it. Frida McFadden books, there are no clues. There's no clues to pick up on the plot twist. There is no way that a reader could be like, oh my gosh, I guessed the plot twist. The plot twist just happens without any merit. What's the point of me reading a book that has a random plot twist 90% through the book that I couldn't have figured out myself? But I rated The Tenant like 3 stars because then I was starting to catch on to the writing style. I was like, this is getting a little predictable. Basically, in Frida McFadden books, just know that it's always the man's fault and it's always the woman who's like behind it all, basically. Next, I read The Outsiders, which is one of my favorite books. I see this random video and it's like, describe your favorite book without describing it. The first comment was, so there's these boys and they are outside. And so then I was like, I should reread that book. This at the time. I looked it up later because I was curious. It was written by a 17-year-old girl. We have a David Lynch book. I hear so many people talk about David Lynch as if he's like the most pretentious person alive, and like not necessarily him, but like his movies. And so then I decided to read his book called Catching the Big Fish. It was actually like him talking about how declined going to therapy because he was worried that it would like stunt his creativity. I rated it 3 stars. It was also a super short book, so 3 stars. Look how ugly this cover is. Also, it looks like there's a pole going into his mouth. Sorry, this cover is just really ugly. I thought I'd voice it. Also, it's like super shiny. I didn't like this book. Sorry. I always read A Christmas Carol, and I'm not a huge Hallmark person. Oh my god, I hate Hallmark movies. My grandma, all she watches is Hallmark movies, and it's literally like, it's exhausting. I hate it so much. I hate Hallmark movies, so I don't know why I would like basically a Hallmark book. They have this like family dinner at the end where they're like trying to like include her and everything, and I actually did really like that. But that's like the only part that I liked of this book, so I would rate it 2 stars. Lastly, finally moving on to the last book of this year, I gave Ali Hazelwood another chance. I read Two Can Play by Ali Hazelwood, and it was so much better than the problematic summer romance thing, because I was like, you know what, she did recently release a new book. I think it's a recent release anyways. I don't know. I hadn't heard anything about it until now, so I'm assuming it's a recent release. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna give it another chance. It's set at a ski lodge, and I was at a ski lodge when I started reading it, so I felt like it was pretty fitting. I was on a ski trip when I read it, and I did read it on New Year's Eve. So all of her male characters are the exact same, I fear, but it was fine because they actually had like pretty good passions in this one. I didn't think it was gonna be like smutty like at all because they're 2 video game developers. You know what I mean? Honestly, I think it's kind of funny that like nowadays Ali Hazelwood's doing so many like side quests when it comes to all of the books that she writes. Of like, I don't know, I just think it's funny. But anyways, yeah, and I rated it 3.5 stars, I think. I think I finished it around 9 p.m. because I remember I posted on my story, like, my reading challenge, like, all complete and beautiful. I think I might have logged it before I finished it, though, because I was so terrified that I would finish the book at, like, 11 o'clock and then, like, forget to log it. And that concludes all the books that I read in 2025. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys for watching my channel this year. I know that it's been kind of different than it has been in recent years. I used to like only make videos about books, and then this year I've done a lot more like car chats, sit down videos, those sorts of things. So thank you guys for watching, and I'm really excited to keep making videos in 2026, and I better figure out where to record them because I'm gonna be living with 8 people. Thank you guys for watching, and have a good day, and if I see you again, cool. Bye.